Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Greetings one and all, tall or short, portly or stick thin, black, white or brindle. Tech Talk is for everybody, and we are serving up the best of it today here at Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. And here, brandishing a tray load of tasty tidbits, is our tech guru himself. Welcome, Matthew Dickerson.
Thank you very much, and I'm going to take credit, well, on behalf of both of us, taking credit for saving the bacon of a couple of people this week. I had two people contact me about almost scams. And they listened
the
to
ones
some
that didn't quite get me.
Yeah, but they listened to some of our podcasts and they knew things to look out for, knew things to pick up on.
Very good.
And both of them, it just goes to show you the social engineering of scammers. So one of them was around tax time. So here we are in Australia, end of financial year, so people are getting their tax returns in, and one of them got an email from the Australian Tax Office, the ATO. Of course, it wasn't, but it gave information about making sure they get their tax claim in because they need to get it in urgently because they need to get their tax refund. And so it seemed like a funny email from the ATO, but hold on.
Need to get it in urgently before the end of October.
Yeah, who knows?
Well before the end of October. Yeah, right.
But it was one of those things where, well, why wouldn't I do that? I've got a tax refund coming. Fantastic. I'll go and submit my tax refund and get that money back straight away. Why wouldn't I do that? That's a good thing. And I didn't know I was going to get a tax refund, but I'll go and do it. But the urgency, one of the things we've talked about before to be careful of is the urgency. So they went, maybe not. No. Looked at it a bit more. And then,
so is it click on a link to open up and
to go and
start
fill in your
e-tax?
details?
Yeah,
that's right. So, and of course, what would have happened if they had have clicked on the link would have been, give us all your details. We want to know your name, your date of birth, your tax file number, everything about you. And that's probably enough for them to go and steal your identity. So they were clever enough to go, I just don't know the tax office will be that keen to give me my refund back. So that was one. And then the other one was from a bank. And I won't say the bank because it was nothing to do with that bank, but this happened to be the bank they banked with. And it said, claim your points before the end of the month. And this person, the first thought they had was, I didn't know this bank had a point scheme, like a flyby scheme or a frequent flyer scheme. I didn't know they had a point scheme, but that wasn't enough to alert them that this wasn't something they should go and click on because didn't know they had the point system. Well, I better go and do it. But there were two little issues with the email that came through. One was your points expire tonight. So they'd never heard about this scheme and the points suddenly expired tonight. So that was the first thing. Well, I haven't heard of it. It seems a bit rude. They're now going to cancel my points tonight. And then the second one, which I thought, and maybe this is a tip to scammers out there, I thought we'd gotten past this one, a spelling error, a really obvious spelling error in the email. And so, again, this person looked at it and went, gee, it's a bit rude. It's a bit really putting that pressure on me, but also a spelling error. Hold on. I've heard James and Matthew.
They were in such a hhurry because there was such a limited amount of time.
But they said they've heard James and Matthew talk about the urgency was the big one, and of course the spelling error. But I'm amazed about the spelling error. I thought now with AI, every scammer out there would run their scam email through AI, make sure the English was perfect. I'm not trying to give hints out here.
Yeah, scammers, come on, get your act.
That's right. But the urgency was one of the ones there. So anyway, they were both smart enough to go, I'm not going to click on that link. That's fine. But it's just taking advantage of things, isn't it? End of financial year, it's tax time or getting towards Christmas. Oh, you've got a parcel delivery. There's all these different things that are happening.
The other thing that seems to be hitting me these days is I keep getting these virus alerts. You've got a virus, quickly. You've got 4 minutes before this, deletes your entire memory on your phone and everything. Yep. And and it's I now recognise it as a common ad that it's they've tried it once and they've tried it again and tried it again and tried it again, and now
that's right. So you've just got to be so alert still, don't you, for so many things happening.
Yeah,
and we've got lots of defences against these various things that are happening, but still
things
they're out there
through.
And they're trying to work their ways around them. So I find it fascinating now when you get a phone call and it says suspicious spam or possible spam activity, and you go, Oh, am I in the mood? Do I want to have some fun here? Or I just want to ignore it? So
I've been watching some videos, some hackers that have been hacking into these call centres, and they can access cameras and stuff like that. And the response from the hackers or the scammers.
it'd have to be disheartening, wouldn't it? If you were a scammer in a call centre and you're sitting there simply ringing calls, getting abused by people, getting hung up on, it'd have to be disheartening. And then you finally get someone who you've got a live hook and you think, I'm going to take advantage of this person being nice. It's a tough way to live your life, I think.
It is, yeah.
Anyway, so be on the alert still.
Yes, that's right. Now, we better press on here. In today's episode, we're going to gain a bit of perspective on the subject of battery fires. We'll check out a smartwatch that will help you get a good night's sleep. But today we are going to do a deep dive into robotics. We've got a whole host of stories about robotics, robots that swim, robots that play soccer, speed read books and deliver your Friday night takeaway dinner. But we start today with a robot that's running from the warehouse to the shop floor. Now, delivery guys the world over are on notice. 7-Eleven stores in China are now taking deliveries from robots. These clever little buggies are riding trains to restock shelves at the 7-Eleven stores in Shenzhen. But, Matt, this is likely to become normalised, you might expect. Am I right?
I think so. Actually, I find 7-Eleven, just off topic here slightly, 7-Eleven, what an interesting name for a store.
Yeah.
Where you've named it for something so specific. I think it was about 1946. They named the 7-Eleven
because
stores
they opened
7-Eleven.
at 7 and closed at 11 at
Correct.
night. Yeah?
And that was longer operating hours than other grocery stores. This is in the US where 7-Eleven started. So they had longer operating hours. So what's the best way to advertise our longer operating hours? I know, 7-Eleven. Of course, now, 24 hours a day. So what do you call it, 12 to 12? But sometimes people name things so specifically. The one that I always think of is a company that's gone broke now. Maybe this is part of the reason why. Strathfield Car Radios. So that was a business that started in Strathfield in Sydney, and they sold
What did they sell,
car
though?
radios. That's right. So that was great in 1980 when they started.
Yeah.
And now imagine going and having a business that based itself around a car radio. Back then, cars either didn't come with a car radio or the stereo wasn't very good. So having a business so focused on car radios made sense. But it wasn't long after that. They were selling mobile phones. About 1987 phones came into Australia, so mobile phones in cars, and they're selling car security systems. They were doing home entertainment.
An electronic store, yeah.
It was, and they were still called Strathfield Car Radios. And now, I think they got to about 75 stores, which kind of made no sense. Where are you going? Oh, I'm going to go to Strathfield Car Radios. Where's that? Oh, it's in Brighton Le Sands. Hold on. Wouldn't that be in Strathfield? Well, there is one in Strathfield, but this one is in... Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. So sometimes people name things so specifically thinking, I know I'll have a business that shows people exactly where I am and what I do, but it can be a bit short-lived, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, off topic there. So in Shenzhen, which is a reasonable sized city, 18 million people or thereabouts, you've got robots that are now delivering the stock to 7-Eleven stores. And that's not that unusual. You are getting autonomous devices, robotics, making deliveries. But what I like about this one is they're saying, well, you know what? I don't need to use my own power to get there. Why don't I use public transport? So they're using the subway under Shenzhen to get their goods from A to B, from the warehouse to the 7-Eleven stores. So I thought about a few things. So they're about 91 centimetres tall. They've got a boxy sort of compartment, which makes sense because they're stocking up with goods. It's locked, obviously, from people being able to touch it. And they have got a little humanoid LED face to maybe make people feel more comfortable.
Make people a little bit more empathetic
That's
towards
right.
it.
Watch this box moving along beside me.
Tell you what, if it's going to ever be riding on the trains, though, it needs a seat on it as well, doesn't it?
Maybe just people sit on it, who knows. But I thought about a few things. So how does it pay for its ticket? And then I thought, well, 91 centimetres tall, it probably sneaks under the turnstiles. I'm sure they don't do that. But how does it actually get a ticket and pay for a ticket to get on there? You've obviously got access for wheels. This has got 4 wheels rather than stairs to get on the train. So that makes sense. Elevator or some sort of walkway to get to each of the particular platforms. But the other thing that's very clever about this is you've got 7-Eleven stores at subways or on subways. So to get to a 7-Eleven store that's in a subway, traditionally, you would have ground transport and then some delivery driver would stop and then go down to the subway and then stock up the store. This is actually already on the subway. So it makes sense from that perspective as well, using the subway to get from A to B and also delivering to some of those stores that are actually located in the subway stations.
It's amazing.
Amazing. So I don't know how far it's going to go. They're trialling it at the moment. When I say a trial, they've got 41 of these autonomous robots out there. And I imagine, I haven't been in Shenzhen, but I've been on subways in China, and they are packed, depending what time of day you go.
Yeah. So how does this little robot tell that carriage is too full? I better try another one.
I'll wait for those. Now, they say it's programmed to allow human passengers to exit the trains first and get on the trains first. That would be the only device that does that, because every human out there is fighting to get on the train first.
Is stepping over their own grandmother.
And one time I was in China with the kids, and we got off a train and we're going along, and I said to the kids, I reckon right now we could lift our feet up, because it was that packed, and we're just moving along with the pack. You could almost lift your feet up and just still be carried along by the pack. So how does this device, now what they're doing at the moment to get around that is they're saying we're only going off peak. But I reckon peak time in Shenzhen would be from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. So peak would be just about all day. So it must be doing it in the middle of the night, outside hours, because it would be near impossible for this thing to still wait and be polite while all these people are getting on the train. They go, oh, I missed that train, damn. And then the next train will be the same. It'll be packed again. So it'll be a fascinating process.
But with this logic of using public transport to be able to deliver goods, you go from the warehouse to some other town or city an hour away, 2 hours away, 5 hours away.
Yeah. So quite
You're going to be loading these things on a plane, so you're going to be taking them a seat on planes.
Now, this is part of Shenzhen's broader Embodied Intelligent Robot Action Plan. Now, I know they're not serious about that because they haven't got a good acronym. So it comes up with ERA, which just doesn't roll off the tongue quite well.
Not working.
But they're aiming for robot integration in Shenzhen by the year 2027, which isn't that far away. So this is all part of this process and I'm actually a bit fascinated by this because, again, when I've been to China, I remember going through a factory and I saw some people doing some very manual labour. They're doing what I would call cross-stitch. I'm sure there's a more professional name for it, but cross-stitch designs. And I actually said to the person that was taking me around for the tour, I said, I would have thought that there were some pretty good automated ways to deliver what that person was doing. And the person looked at me and said, but if we did that, what would our employee do then? So they're almost trying to protect their jobs by not using technology.
Okay.
And now here we are replacing delivery drivers with robotics, which seems to be the opposite of that logic of we need jobs for our Chinese people to do. But it is fascinating, a different way of delivering things. The robots themselves are being developed in a whole range of ways. We have got a few robot stories today, but a whole range of ways to interact in variable and changing environments. We've often talked about the fact that robots are great on a car assembly line where I've got to put a spot weld on that pit of the car every single time, and I'm going to do it perfectly. It's going to be accurate, but don't ask me to do something else.
Because the environment is completely consistent.
Yeah.
It's totally uniform for 24/7.
Yep.
Nothing changes.
That's right. Whereas this, wow, things are changing every minute there.
Yeah, so it's got to be able to respond to changes and interact with humans.
And no one's driving these. These are all autonomous. They have got people back at the central office that can take control of one if something happens with it. If someone does sit on it, maybe. They have electric shock they put through it, maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, there is control of it. But again, they're not designed to have pure control. They're loaded up and sent off to the stores and away they go.
Maybe one day we'll see them with seats on them and you'll have people just riding on them, just scratching each other's back. You allow me to take your job, well, I'll at least give you a free ride down to the...
That sounds good.
Whatever. And delivery droids are hardly confined to China. In the US, where the takeaway industry is a multi-billion-dollar business, there is some major investment going into robotics and drones to do the heavy lifting there. So, Matt, if it's not at your door in 20 minutes, does that mean you don't have to leave a tip?
Well, you don't have to leave a tip for any of these, which is a huge benefit because you always feel guilty. I'm in Australia. I don't have that idea or that habit of leaving tips, and you go to America and there's just that expectation.
Yeah, so this delivery guy's waiting at your door.
Yeah.
I've got the pizza, thank you very
That's
much.
right, have a nice day. And he's still standing there.
And you close the door and there's a knock, knock, knock.
That's right. And my brother's been in America for a long time, and so sometimes I'm there with him and I go, how much do I tip? And he's kind of, well, it's 10% or 15%. There's all these sort of rules and protocols. And I went,
but it means you've got to have all this spare change as well.
That's right. But also the thing that gets me is I'm okay-ish if I've received fantastic service. If I go, wow, that was good service. But when it's just they've done their job and they did it competently, and then they expect the tip. And as my brother explains, they don't get paid much. I said, well, is that my fault? Then tell the business to charge more for their product and then pay your employees properly. So anyway,
it's an odd economy.
It's a whole, that's right, it is a whole different ball
Hello
game.
to our friends in the States. I hope you're all well.
That's right. Now, over 4 billion food delivery orders were placed last year in the US, and I thought, surely that's wrong. I went and researched a bit further, but then I thought, hold on, there's 350 million people in America. So, again, that's every man, woman, child.
Yeah.
But if every person just did 12 orders for the year, there's 4 billion. So I reckon that'd be about right. I reckon it would be pretty easy to get 12 orders in food delivery from just the average American. So that's fascinating. But obviously what we're trying to do, we, the rural we, is get better at doing those deliveries, because that's where a huge expense for these businesses comes from, is getting that delivery, getting the last mile done.
Exactly.
And we're prepared to pay as lazy humans for someone to come and do that delivery for us. It seems incredible to me that we are so prepared to pay to save us just making a quick trip down to pick up the groceries or get our takeaway food, whatever it might be, but we are prepared to pay that. But we've got an AI-powered robots and drones are constantly being developed. So there's a few examples I've got here of what's happening. Core Robotics has basically completed over 500,000 deliveries so far, autonomous deliveries. So they've got thousands of food delivery robots in places like Chicago and LA and Helsinki and Miami. So they're getting much better. Again, as with the last story, they're all autonomous, but they've got someone back at the office to go, oh, we need to take control of this. But this is much harder. When we talked about the last story, restocking, here's the warehouse.
Yeah.
Here's the store I'm going to. Yes, I've got some things that are variable along the way, but at least I know the beginning and the end pretty well.
Yeah.
But with these ones, they're going out to people's homes, so it's every
Could
address.
be anywhere, anything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And then working out the best route for that, that's pretty easy. We see that happen with GPS all the time. The best route for my robot to go on might be a different route to me driving a car or walking or riding a bicycle. So that's another little complication.
Oh, look, we've got a complication as well. At our house, our mailbox is at a different place to where our driveway is. So, yeah, if you just follow your sat-nav or whatever, then it's going to take you to the mailbox, which is going to be a disappointment if you're trying to get to our front door.
That's right. So there's all those sort of variables. They've gotten, I suppose, a few different ones. So they've got Harold's Chicken Shack in Chicago. They've replaced human drivers there. You've got a range of ones. There's another one called Sweetfin, which is a Californian poke bowl company. They're using Coco robots for deliveries. So you've got a whole range of these now that are getting to the stage where they're using robotics. There's another company that uses AI to just weigh the fast food delivery before it goes out the door to be able to say there's something missing. And they found at this stage 8% of the orders are wrong. So they've been packed, they've been set up ready to go, and just as a final check they get weighed. Oh, stop, something's missed because the weight's out. So there's a little check there, I suppose, just to check that. So using AI for a whole range of things is going to make it better. But drone delivery, I think this is where the real development is happening. So we've both got companies like Zipline and Wing, which is Alphabet's company called Wing, and they're doing drone deliveries where they're lowering on a tether various deliveries to home. So they basically fly along at anywhere from 45 to 90 metres above the ground, and that's easier for them to get from A to B, obviously, because you haven't got traffic and people and someone trying to sit on them as they go along the way. And then they get to places and they just drop that parcel down.
I just think it's going to be amazing when you're sitting there and it's just normal that, oh, there goes another drone with someone with pizza. I can see that's some burgers there, you know.
That's right. And we've done stories before about trying to get those drones quieter, because it will be a bit annoying when you get all these drones buzzing around above us with all that noise pollution. But
just provided they don't spill the drinks, that's all.
That's right. Now, you've got companies like Jet's Pizza, Panera Bread. They've got drone deliveries happening already, so this is quite fascinating. You've gotten, even in Canberra, you might remember, we've talked about this one before as well, where you've gotten coffee deliveries in Canberra. And I thought, isn't that just the ultimate indulgence?
It is.
I couldn't be bothered to, turn on the kettle for a start and just make your own coffee, or just duck down to the coffee shop. I'm going to get a drone to deliver my coffee to me, and at my front door there'll be a coffee sitting there ready to drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's happening. So whole range of different ways.
The cafe culture, people going out for a coffee as well.
Well, isn't that part of it as well, that you go out and say,
that's
hey,
right.
we'll go and catch it for a coffee? No, I'm just going to have it in my home, thanks.
And
I'll FaceTime you instead. But it is fascinating. There's a whole range of different ways they're happening. Don't be surprised when you see that next delivery not from a human, from something, some other device, whether it be a drone or whether it be some sort of autonomous device. Yeah,
It's on its way.
Fascinating.
Fancy yourself as a bit of a speed reader? Perhaps you might be liking to... Oh, I'm going to start that again. Perhaps you might like to take on the Treventus Scan Robot 2.0. Now, I don't want to give too much away here, but you might like to pack a rubber thimble if you're going to go head-to-head with this one. You've got to turn those pages quickly. Matt, this robot will run through a fragile first edition, no less, with speed and tender-loving care.
Yeah, and I'm a bit disappointed here because we're up to 2.0
and you had no idea about the 1 or the 1.5 or the 1.6?
None of those. So the 2.0 must be the one that was the first one worth talking about. We are, across the world, digitising books. We know it's easier to access the information from them. So when I'm searching for something, I don't need to go and visit a library in a certain location. I can just access it online. But also keeping all of that information, because books deteriorate over time.
Yeah.
Maybe books get burnt in a fire. You could lose that information, which is all part of human history. So digitising books across the world is happening. Typically, especially when you get some of these older, maybe delicate books, typically it can take over a week for a single book to be scanned in a format that is actually searchable. So not just a photograph of each page, but scanned in a format that you can actually read.
We've all read books where the pages tend to fall out because the glue's gotten weak, or there's a problem with some of them it's stitched in and the stitching's torn and all that sort of stuff, and they're so dog-eared and frayed, those old books.
And we've done a story before about poison on the outside of books to
that's
give us
right.
that
Who wants
green
to touch
colour.
these
That's right. So you don't want to touch them now. But it does make sense to have these books digitised. Now I can remember back in my uni days when you'd get old exam papers and they'd be in a book and you'd go to the library and you'd sit there and put on the photocopy and you'd photocopy those one at a time. It was a laborious process. There was a big line up around exam time. And you'd look at those various photocopies and they've always got a bit of a curve on the centre where the book's kind of folded out.
Yeah.
So not perfect if you're trying to then turn that into editable text. So what the University of Tulsa has come up with is, as you said, Scan Robot 2.0. It does something a little bit different. It holds the book a bit like a human would hold a book, where it's out at about 45 degrees. And then it's got a device that actually goes from the centre of the book and scans out so that it's scanning it parallel to the page, rather than try and fold the whole page out and then get a curved image there. Right. So that seems to make sense. But it's a complicated bit of a rig. And I looked at that and I thought, wow, that looks complicated. But speed, 2,500 pages per hour.
Wow.
This can scan at, and that includes turning pages by itself. So forget the rubber thumb, as you mentioned there, for a human. This uses a bit of air, just a very gentle bit of puff of air and a little vacuum pad to turn each page. So the turning of the pages, just think about that, 2,500 page turns an hour. That's
trying to
going
do the
for
maths
it.
here, so divide that by 60, you got 40. Yeah.
So
40 pages per minute.
Per minute, that's right. So you're getting one just about every second, just over a second.
Wow.
So flick over, scan, flick over, scan.
Yeah, but gently as well.
Gently, because you've got these very old ones. You don't want to be pulling out you don't have the rubber going, oh, I've got this page in my hand. I didn't break it.
I don't know where it goes.
That's right. So I think this is great, though. And again, when someone comes up with something like this, I'm sure other libraries around the world go, oh, okay, either let's do something the same, or are you happy for us to license that off you, or can you manufacture another one and we'll buy it off you? You don't need to reinvent the wheel. So this, I think, is going to be fantastic because we do have a lot of books at different libraries around the world. So this particular library at the University of Tulsa in particular says they've got 64,000 books that they're applying this to. Now, some of these books maybe in libraries across the rest of the world as well. I'm not saying they're exclusively in this one library, but that's a lot of books that they're planning on scanning in. But the other good part about this is once it's editable text, if I search for it, I'm then going to be able to find that information. So all that information, some of it valuable, some of it historical, some of it fascinating information, can then be searched on rather than someone knowing there's a book out there with that information in it. So whole range of different benefits, but this is where we're taking advantage of robotics rather than scaring us with robotics. So this is a really good story, I think, robotics. It shouldn't scare too many people, apart from the people that used to scan these jobs manually.
You're watching it and you're thinking, wow, that's turning pages so quickly. While these two podcast presenters continue to lament the current lack of robots that will collect dirty laundry from our floors and subsequently deal with it after that, at least now there are robots who can do as much for our waterways. Rand Marine is a Dutch company creating cool environmental crusading robots that can scour waterways for litter. And even more, Matt.
Well, I'd call them Roomba for rivers. It's basically the same as a Roomba as a vacuum device around your home, and this doing this in rivers. Now, not big enough to go out in the ocean yet,
right?
But they're absolutely doing it in rivers. Now, they've got two devices. This is a company called Rand Marine, R-A-N Marine. It's a Dutch startup company. They've got MegaShark and WasteShark. So they're operating across the world at the moment. Now, WasteShark's a fairly small device. So if you've got a small river, a small waterway, something where it's a bit tight, then you drop WasteShark in. And WasteShark is a bit like a James Bond movie where you've got a ship that's got a big opening at the front and it swallows up other ships.
I want it to look like a shark too.
Well, I'm sure they could put a fin on the back just to give you that little bit of a scare.
Some teeth and some eyes.
That's right. They've probably got a bit over the top. In fact, I think they've probably gone more for the plankton eating concept of a whale shark rather than a shark with a fin that goes and eats you.
Okay, but if they're going to call it shark, I still want teeth.
A fin at least. Yeah. Okay. So WasteShark goes around and autonomously will look for rubbish in a small waterway and then basically swallow that down. It'll get up to 160 kilograms of waste before it then has its little receptacle to be emptied out. It's still got to be a human involved there, so it comes across to the shore. Human takes out that bit, like emptying the waste out of a Roomba, for example, put it back in, send it back out on the waterway.
But now I'm thinking, like a lot of the waste will collect on the banks, in amongst reeds, in amongst sticks and snags and whatnot. So I'm wondering, this can navigate its way through that, perhaps?
I don't think it's good enough to get that close to the edge. It's fairly
I'm wondering
low
how much
depth.
how much is actually floating in the middle of the river as opposed to what gets stuck on the sides.
And I think a big part of it would be how fast a river flows. If you've got a very slow-moving river, it probably sits around a bit more, but a fast-moving river probably pushes it out to the sides a bit more.
Fast-moving river, you're just going to lose this thing. It's going to get washed downstream.
Well, that's right.
You have to jump in your car and pick it up somewhere
Well,
else.
maybe that's why they've got MegaShark, because it's larger, more powerful, and again designed for bigger rivers because it can cover more room. And essentially you drop it in the water and say, go for it. It scours what it can see before it then goes off on its mission to go and find rubbish. And if it can't find rubbish, it just keeps driving itself along. It's all driven by electricity or battery as such, so it's good for the environment. And then it just keeps swallowing up these things. But they've actually found, and it's great how companies develop depending on market needs. That was the original intention. We want to go out and collect rubbish. And they actually found they weren't getting a lot of government support. They weren't getting councils or government bodies saying, yep, we want to get rid of the rubbish in our waterways, so let's buy some of these because obviously you want to make some sales to keep developing them. But then when they found they could also do toxic algae bloom removal and oil removal, suddenly government departments and some other commercial interests became very interested in this, and then they started selling more of them. So that's more where they're focused now, and this is more with MegaShark rather than their smaller WasteShark. MegaShark's the bigger one rather than WasteShark. So MegaShark is more focused now on some of those things that are floating on the water, like an algae bloom or oil, and then they clean up that. I'm not sure what they do to oil. I assume they've got some sort of filter system because the problem we know with oil is it doesn't dissolve in water, so it sits there on the surface.
And it will clog things up when you try to suck it up too.
That's right. So again, it just drives through the water and it automatically goes in and then captures that and obviously has some sort of filtering system there. But it's interesting how that's changed and how their pivot has changed. You can also do water quality measurements. So as you go along in your river, you can check pH levels, you can check temperature, you can check dissolved oxygen levels, which might be important for fish in your waterways, for example. So I think a good concept. And again, it wouldn't be surprising to be out on a river one day, on a boat, on a canoe, whatever, and see a device going along, just minding its own business, swallowing up things in its path.
Well, I'm sure that local councils would be savvy to the fact that if you've got a clean waterway that's running past your town or through your town or whatever, that a clean waterway attracts more people as well. Yeah. So, recreational use of waterways and just establishing businesses by the side of a river as well because it's attractive.
Yep.
Unless you've got it stinky and infested with blue-green algae or litter, what have you. Yeah, there's got to be a great market for this for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, if you haven't done so yet, jump onto Google and search Robo Cup. Now, that's a soccer tournament. Check out the latest videos of where we are up to with robots that can play soccer. The competition is 23 years old now, and while the gameplay is still quite clunky and comically slow, the ambition is for the next 25 years that these droids will be competitive with humans at a World Cup level. Matt, these machines may be clever, but can they be taught the offside rule?
No one can be taught the offside rule. So I think the organisers of Robo Cup have a BHAG. I often talk about this sort of goal that you might have a big, hairy, audacious goal. They want to be able to beat whoever the FIFA World Cup champion human team is in 2050. They want to be able to beat them with their team of robots. Now, you think 25 years, that's a long way away, and maybe that is. They've deliberately gone for a long way away because it is a long way away before they get to that. Yeah, that's right. And then they can just adjust it as time, as it gets closer to 2050. Yeah. They can always
So in 5 years' time, we can run a story. In 25 years, we'll have it.
That's right. And maybe that's it. Just always it'll be 25 years' time. But they're going quite well at the moment, and it's getting big. The first one actually started in 1997, and then there was a bit of a change there in 2002, which you mentioned 23 years ago. But they're at the stage now, 250 teams competed in the competition this year.
Wow.
37 different countries. So it's big. It's absolutely...
Look, I jumped online and I looked on YouTube and I looked at the 2002 Robo Cup.
Yep.
And they were just like boxes on wheels and they had a little lever that kicked the ball, that flicked out. But now we're looking at humanoid robots that are running around.
They've got two competitions, and I like the fact that they do it this way. So they've got two different competitions. They've got one, SPL is one competition. So they basically issue standard robots. Here is a standard physical robot. That's our control. All the robots are physically identical. Your job is to develop the software to make this operate to the best it can be. So they really want people to focus on software development there. And so I like that idea. I can enter that if I'm a university or I'm some sort of software development house and I go, look, I'll write the code for that. I don't want to go and make the hardware. That seems like a lot of work to manufacture. I'm not a manufacturer, but the software, fantastic. So that's one competition. They play 5 aside with that one. So you don't want to get it too complicated and too confused on the field.
Yeah, I think that's the one I was watching too.
Yep.
In 2025.
Yeah, so that one, and that was won by a robot or a company called Be Human from Germany, Be-Human. So that won that one. And again, they have various technical challenges, the best kick and the longest kick and that sort of thing. And Be Human won a lot of those, but they won the tournament for the standardised robots. You then also have a humanoid competition, bipedal robots. You have to create your own hardware. You build it. You're responsible for everything. And there are some parameters on there, but basically it's up to you to create a humanoid robot in whatever way you can. So there are not really a lot of limits on that because they want people to really explore as far as they can go. I also think they've done something quite sensible. They've got a couple of different levels of that. You either play 3-a-side or 2-a-side, and that sounds 2-a-side soccer, what? But that means they don't have to go and build a bunch of robots.
Oh, yeah.
So it would make it very expensive for someone. If you've got to have 11 aside, then it makes it very expensive. So that means you've only got to build, for one of the categories, you've only got to build 2 of these robots. So it might be expensive, it might be difficult to manufacture one, and then you've got to do it a second time. That's okay, but 11 would be quite difficult. So the company that won that one was from Tsinghua University, I hope I pronounced that right, Tsinghua, and they won the adult humanoid robot competition. Now, some of the people that were talking about entering this said that they're pretty happy if their robots can just walk around and not fall over. When you get to the stage where they're running and kicking a ball. Now, and that's the thing, I when I was thinking about this story and I watched a game or watched a little bit of a rugby league game and just watched the goal kicker coming in to kick a goal at one stage, I went, you know what? There's a lot of coordination to kick a ball when you're lining up like that. It's you're running in, you're stopping, you're pivoting, you're swinging. Wow, that's complicated.
We take a lot for granted.
We do. We're pretty clever.
You just need to watch a toddler play soccer to realise, you've got to learn some stuff here.
Well, the other thing you can do is I played one season of AFL and I'm a right-footed kicker and they said, to play AFL properly, you've got to be able to kick both feet. Well, I can't kick with my left foot. I couldn't kick with my left foot all that season. But that's the thing. If you want to see how hard it is, try kicking with your left foot. Now, obviously, the professionals do it very well. But if you haven't kicked with your left foot, you try and kick with your left foot, and it's very interesting.
You have to really stop and think about all your actions. I can kick both feet, I'm going to say.
Yeah,
not
good.
professional at all, but I did teach myself.
Yep.
But you have to stop and think about everything and then just work it until it becomes natural.
Yeah.
It's really tough. And to teach a machine to do that, I think it'd be tough too.
That's right. So that's what I'm thinking. Like, we're pretty clever. Naturally, we just work out how to do all that.
But you've got to stand. Look, it's enough to get it to walk or to run, but to do something one-footed that then encounters some resistance when it goes to kick a ball and not fall over.
Yep.
Yep.
Fascinating. So,
well done, guys.
Two-a-side soccer, they had 150,000 spectators for this.
Wow.
It ran in Brazil from the 17th to the 21st of July, so only a fairly short tournament, but 150,000 spectators. That's pretty reasonable in terms of watching some robot competition.
It's a moneymaker.
But we are getting to the stage where we're getting better with robotics. And you think, well, what's the point? Who cares if they can beat a team of humans or not? And who cares about 2050? But it's all about this development of robots, whether it be the software side, whether it be the hardware side. We want to be able to use robots in emergency responses or use robots around our homes, picking up our clothes, all these things.
And hopefully they won't take over the world and destroy us all.
And hopefully they won't kick us up the bottom if we're not doing the right thing. But it is fascinating. Have a look at the video. It's actually worthwhile having a look at.
And there's no offsides, apparently.
Well, with two-a-side, it's a bit harder, isn't it?
All right, it's time for a shift in focus now as we turn to smartwatch tech. Now, sleep apnea is a common problem affecting roughly an eighth of the world's population. The repercussions for a sufferer's health are quite serious, and so getting on top of it promptly may prolong someone's life significantly. So, Matt, a smartwatch that can detect an episode of sleep apnea is certainly a handy tool to have.
Yeah, and they're getting so good, aren't they? And I've told the story before, I'm sure. I remember when I used to have a watch that was connected to my chest strap and a watch, the same watch that connected to a shoulder strap. So the chest strap for my heart rate, a shoulder strap for my GPS, and basically all my watch could do was tell me my heart rate and my location, how fast I was running, and that was it. And I've talked to people in the time, oh, gee, it'd be good when we get a certain feature on a watch. Oh, you'll never be able to do that. Well, of course, now we've got watches that track our steps without us even thinking about it. Heart rhythm via ECGs, obviously heart rate. We've got blood oxygen, wrist temperature, VO2 max, irregular heart rhythms, detect falls. We can do payments on them. Music, if you went for a run in the old days, you'd still have your Walkman strapped on with your headphones. You had all these devices hanging off you. It looked like I was going on a covert operation sometimes. So you'd have all these things hanging off you, and you can do all of that and still even share your location in an emergency. So we've come a long way, but this latest one is actually not any new advances on the watch itself. It's just the software. So if you've got an Apple Watch that's got WatchOS 11 and iOS 18 on your phone, so that's basically if you've got a Series 9, Series 10 or an Ultra 2 model watch, then you can basically have it set up, and I've already turned mine on, but it needs about 30 days of data to see whether you've got any issues or not.
Okay.
You can turn it on and it can detect breathing disturbances during sleep. And all it uses is the accelerometer in your watch. So it detects enough from that when, if you've got sleep apnea, apparently there's a bit of a jerky movement in your body.
Okay.
And that's enough for it to say, oh, there's an issue there. So, and I actually wondered about the first time I slept with it after I turned it on, I went, so do I need to sleep on my back with my wrist on my chest to see if that's how it works? But apparently you just sleep how you would normally sleep. And just that movement in your body, your watch will pick up that you've had a jerky movement.
Wow.
And then it'll give you some sort of indication that you've got sleep apnea. Now, again, it uses 30 days of data. So it obviously looks at that and says, sometimes this person moves around a little bit in their sleep, so I'll ignore that. Oh, there was a different movement there. That's what I've got to take notice of.
Sleep patterns.
But yeah, looking at those sleep patterns. So it's just, I find it fascinating. And sleep apnea, I didn't know how bad a problem it was. But
there's quite a list of nasty things that happen as a result of prolonged sleep apnea.
That's exactly right. And you think you just be tired. Well, I won't say just be tired. It's a bit annoying if you're tired. But if you've got sleep apnea and you don't treat it, which it is a treatable disease, and let's face it, if we've got a treatable disease and we know we've got it, let's treat it and our life is better. But if you don't treat it, it can lead to heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes. And when I said before you're just tired, well, there are incidents where people have been tracked having sleep apnea and they do fall asleep at the wheel of their car, for example, or they're in an industrial situation and they fall asleep because they're so tired because they didn't sleep well the night before. And we've got at least 1 million Aussies that suffer from sleep apnea, and most of those are undiagnosed. So I think it's a fantastic thing to get this data, and this is where I suppose you use the power of AI. They had 4,000 nights of training on 2,000 separate individuals that had sleep apnea to get to the stage where they knew what they were looking for in the accelerometer. So looking at the patterns that were occurring with those actual changes that were happening when people were sleeping. So there's a lot of data that's fed into this, and it's fascinating, isn't it? Just what's the next thing I do? If I'm Apple or I'm Samsung, in my watches, what's the next thing I could possibly do? And someone will say something crazy like sleep apnea, and everyone will laugh at them and go, well, that's stupid. How would you do that? And then they go, well, maybe we could do this. And then they work away at a while. Next thing you know, we've got a new feature on one of our watches.
Well, and the other thing I wonder about is, combining data. So it'll measure your sleep, but then it'll also be recording heart rate through the day as well, and it'll be measuring other factors of your body, how many steps you're taking in the day. And with AI, we might be able to marry some of these points of data together to see if not only there's a correlation, because we know correlation isn't always causation, but that may be something that leads to something else that is left field that we didn't really think about.
So do you think the ultimate answer will be the advice that you'll get is to exercise and eat better? The things that our doctors have been telling us for a long time.
Trying to avoid all that.
We're going to get more and more information to tell us the same thing that we know, that we should just be exercising and eating better.
Yeah. Now, are you still getting around with a blasé attitude to passwords? Well, if you're not going to take this story where a lazy, naive attitude shut down an entire company that erased 700 jobs overnight, you're your own worst enemy. Matt, 700 jobs erased overnight and shut down an entire company. What can I say? Oops.
Yeah, that's right. It was a single weak password that one staff member had on their staff, and that allowed a hacker to get into the system, lock down the data of this particular company, and then said, okay, you give us £5 million and we'll unrelease or take off our lock that we put on your data. Wow. Now, the company said, we don't have that kind of money to be able to pay. And they're a transport company, so they had customers out there relying on them to deliver goods. And they said, well, we'll try and recover from this. We've got insurance, we've got IT experts to try and help us recover. By the time they managed to get to the stage where they could get their business up and running again, once all their data was like recreated, if you like, customers had left. They still needed goods delivered. So 158-year history of this transport logistics company, which is obviously a reasonable sized company with 700 people, and that was wiped out within the space of about a week it took for all this to happen.
Because someone used the word password for their password.
It was exactly it. So, and I know there's forcible or enforceable processes you can put in place to make sure your people have good, strong passwords across the network, but sometimes it's just one little loophole or another program that you use, or maybe it's an API that has access to certain parts of your data because you need that for external access. There's so many little holes that can be lurking out there. It's pretty scary. I mean, I suppose one of the things is I'd always say make sure you've got a backup that's offline so that if you do have something happen, you can say, well, we've lost the last day, but at least I can go back to yesterday, which is when we had that last backup go offline. But I'm sure they had backups, but if it's an online backup, that can be encrypted in this process as well. There are hackers out there. And again, people have said to me, well, should I be worried as an individual? Well, they're probably not going to target you as an individual. What they may do, though, is they might stumble across your password and they can make it pretty uncomfortable for you as an individual. So maybe just have a strong password as an individual and get used to the idea of just using strong passwords everywhere you go. So if you go into your workplace, you just go, I've got to have a strong password. And the ones that we've talked about before is a bit like my very elderly mother just saw Uncle Ned pass, which is the mnemonic that I used to use to remember the planets at school.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing. You come up with some expression.
It's got some numbers in it and might be able to have some characters, some bit of text speak in it.
That's right. So it'll be anyone that looks at it as a jumble of characters. And again, as you say, upper, lowercase, some other special characters, numbers, that sort of thing. But it looks like a jumble of characters. But to you, it means something. It's an expression. It's something that means something to you.
Yeah.
I reckon one of the real challenges for people, though, is when we're forced to change our passwords from various programs, because then people want to add a 1, 2, 3, 4 at the end, and then that isn't accepted. And so that's when they start putting either easy passwords, or they stick a post-it note on the computer to go, password for this site is here and password for here is that, and away they go. So it is an ongoing challenge, but it gives you an idea, I suppose, of how many are out there. Some of the data that came out of this as well is a bit scary. An estimated 19,000 ransomware attacks hit UK businesses every year. 19,000 across the US. So most of the demands in the UK anyway are around the £4 million mark, and hacking incidents are going up, not down. And more now we're seeing social engineering. So basically kids with gaming backgrounds are using con tactics rather than pure coding skills to get past stuff, where they might make a phone call, oh, we've detected an issue on your computer, we just need to do this. And so they're conning people out of their passwords rather than actually using brute skills to actually get in, which means there's a whole bunch of extra people out there that can become hackers. And it might seem like fun until you have 700 people lose their jobs.
Yeah, goodness me. In a modern world where convenience is increasingly powered by a battery, paranoia is swelling in the broader community over the threat of spontaneous fires. Now, lithium battery fires are quite terrifying. They're intense and hard to put out. So is this fear warranted, Matt?
Well, that's a good question. Is it warranted? Yes, if you do get a battery fire, it burns hot and it burns for all the fuel that it has there. Putting it out is quite difficult. So to give you an idea, and I think most emergency responders now just let a car fire burn out if it's a battery fire. But if you were to try and put it out, one car fire, the battery in one car or EV, can require about 113,000 litres of water, and I'm sure they'll be using some of the retardants in there as well, but 113,000 litres of water to extinguish. You're getting temperatures around 1,000 degrees Celsius in a car fire battery. And I'm not trying to give a bad name to EVs here, because in petrol cars you have some liquid contained in a little explosive part there called the fuel tank that can catch fire and burn, and that thing can happen as well. You actually get more petrol fires per capita, per number of cars out there, per 1,000 cars if you like, than you do EV fires. I suppose the only difference is we seem to have gotten better at putting out petrol fires than we have at EV fires at this stage. But that might be about to change, because some researchers at the Chinese Academy of Sciences Institute of Chemistry have come up with a concept where they actually build in some fire retardant into the battery. So you've got layers in a battery. One of the things that you have with a battery, what you want is high energy. You want as much energy density in that battery as possible, because you don't want the battery to be larger than it needs to be or heavier than it needs to be. So you want to pack it all in. And that's sometimes where you get the problems. In particular, I think scooter fires sometimes get a bad name.
Yeah.
You get cheap scooters where they haven't spent enough time in R&D to make sure that battery has got enough separation inside the battery between layers. You get a bit of overheating, and that's when you can have that fire start. So most car fires now are pretty good, that really need something to happen, like an accident to start that. It doesn't start spontaneously, but you still get it happen. So what this concept is you've got a flame retardant polymer that only reacts under extreme heat. So the polymer sits inside the battery in the layers of the battery, and then when you get the battery past 100 degrees Celsius, the polymer effectively reacts and expands to basically push those areas of the battery apart. Now, it would destroy the battery, but that would be okay, because the whole idea is that it's obviously caught on fire, so you want to stop that fire as quickly as possible. So this will be something, I think, whether this solution or a solution similar to that, this will be a solution that I'm sure battery manufacturers will have as a standard item in their batteries in, say, 2 years' time, where it'll just be some sort of flame retardant polymer built into the battery that's almost its own fire suppression system built into the battery. Now, again, that will be with more expensive batteries, maybe car batteries, maybe not the cheap scooters you buy from some companies that aren't so reputable, but anyone that's serious about making sure these batteries are as safe as possible will have something like this built in. So we're getting there. Keep in mind that we've really been developing batteries at the level, at the volume we're talking about for maybe the last decade and maybe the last decade and a half. We've had a long time to get better at petrol fires, and in Formula One they've got some incredible things in the petrol tanks in a Formula One car. Yeah. But still, there was that famous incident, Rougon, I think his name was, that had a fire a couple of years ago, and he managed to get out of it, but the car still exploded in flames. It was very scary watching the onboard video. He burned his hands getting out, but he got out with minor injuries. But still, with all of these safety protocols we have, we still managed to get fires in a car or a petrol-fired car. So give us some time, I suppose, to get EVs right. But at this stage, we're developing them.
But it's happening.
Yeah, it is.
Since its explosion into popular use 2.5 years ago, AI, at least, has become a solution to many a problem, reducing costs, time and effort. And in the TV game, production costs can blow out on the strength of a single creative idea. So, if you can get AI to do your visual effects, for example, then I guess you can pump out episodes faster with visual hooks to glue an audience to the screen for longer. At least that's Netflix's most recent strategy, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, it does make sense. And Netflix has now said that we've got our first ever TV series that's got AI-generated effects. The series is called The Eternaut, Eternaut. It's an Argentine science fiction series. And so with all the AI we've got out there and issues that have been in the film industry where writers have gone on strike because they're worried about it. Actors maybe went, we're okay for the moment, or maybe we should support the writers because maybe AI will take over our jobs as well. Now you've got visual effects. Maybe you've got stunt actors who are going, hold on, I want to be able to be in that car and roll that car rather than just have an AI scene do that. But to me, it does make sense. And I remember watching a preview, or it might have been a mini documentary on a Mission Impossible movie where Tom Cruise was jumping a motorbike off a huge cliff. Yeah. And just watching the rehearsals, the practice, the risk that went along with all that, I watched that and went, wow, this is incredible. And then a part of me said, is this the best use of human endeavours to keep jumping this motorbike off this cliff over and over and over to get it right before finally you do it for that one incredible shot in a movie, that incredible scene where you go, wow, that was scary and incredible, fantastic. And then you move on to the next scene.
Well, it kept Tom Cruise entertained. He's notorious for just wanting to do these sorts of things because he wants to do something that other people can't.
Yeah, and look, I get that as well, and I admire Tom Cruise for basically not saying,
but if you're a producer and time is money,
yeah. And I'm sure Tom didn't do it for free. I'm sure he said, look, I want to be paid to jump this motorbike off this cliff 1,000 times. So using AI certainly makes sense to me. Can you pick that it's AI? Probably at the moment you can. Give it time, it'll be much harder to pick that this is AI because we know it's getting better all the time. And as long as it still tells the story, as long as it still keeps the storyline going, it's a valid scene in a show, a movie, whatever, then look, I'm okay with it. And sorry to all those people that might lose their jobs because of it, but there'll be different jobs. There'll be jobs for people to create the AI scenes rather than people who are actually out there rolling a car and making sure they're all safe and ready to go with that whole process. So it's fascinating. I'm not sure how happy all the actors are out there with the scenes that they might be missing out on with AI. Is this the thin edge of the wedge? Is this scenes that they need stunt people for, scenes they need people to be able to produce this for? And then next thing
you watch the credits roll on a movie now and you can see the animators, the people who have been involved with creating the animation, and it's just, that's a long list of people. There's a lot of people who've got their name stuck up there. Yep. And AI, well, there's a risk that AI is just going to steal all of those positions.
I think of the Harry Potter movies, and I remember being in England going through the, I suppose you call it a museum now, where they had a lot of the Harry Potter memorabilia, and then this incredible scene of the entire area of Hogwarts and all the rest of it in miniature for a lot of the filming they did of some of the various scenes. And incredible amount of skill, incredible amount of work that's gone into that, just building that set in a miniature form for a start. And then you start thinking, wow, do I really need that in the future? Do I just have AI create that scene, and every scene I just either put a real actor in front and have a green screen behind and put AI in the background, or just use AI for the whole lot? So Netflix has taken the first step. They've announced it. They actually, interestingly enough, when they announced it, the co-CEO, which I think is a strange concept, co-CEO, but that's a separate discussion, co-CEO Ted Sarandos announced the AI use during a financial results briefing. So I think that was significant because basically they were saying we can produce this scene faster and cheaper than using traditional effects methods. So that seems like a good thing to say at a financial results meeting.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, rather than at a how are our actors going meeting or some actors guild meeting they might go along to. So I think that's where it's headed. You can't say no, you can't put your hand up and stop the ocean coming in. I think at some stage you've got to say...
Can of worms is open, isn't it?
It has been. That's exactly it. And it's happening. We're still live and real for the moment, James.
For the moment. Well, that's all there is today, folks. You've fulfilled your end of the bargain, and we can all tick the box on a job well done. So thanks for another cracking tech talk, Matt.
I don't want off to sleep because I need to get my 30 days in to make sure I just work out whether I've got sleep apnea or not.
You can't fast track that?
I don't
you
think
can't
so.
just sleep through the whole lot?
Well, maybe I could just have 3 or 4 sleeps a day. Maybe I could try and do that and see if I could then circumvent that down to maybe 10 days.
Sounds enticing. All right, thank you all for tuning in once again for another freshly unboxed episode of Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. It's your recipe for the best preparation for a bright future. Now, I'm your host, James Eddy, wishing you a wonderful week ahead. It's always delightful to bring you this peek into the future, and I hope you'll join us again in another week's time. Until then, take care, and we'll see you when we see you.